Create your own stories on BookZeta.ai. The Squirrel Who Painted the Sky. Sammy lived in the great green woods. He was a small squirrel with reddish-brown fur. His tail was big and fluffy, like a plume of auburn smoke. While the other animals ran around, Sammy sat still. He had a small notch in his left ear from an old adventure. He loved to look at the trees and the grass. The woods were full of life and bright colors. Sammy felt happy just watching the world move around him. All the other squirrels were very busy today. They were scurrying across the forest floor to find nuts. Winter was coming, and they needed food. They filled their cheeks with acorns and hid them in the ground. But Sammy was not looking for nuts. He sat on a mossy log with his dark black eyes wide open. He was busy looking at the way the light hit the leaves. He saw magic in the forest that others missed. Sammy walked through a sunny meadow. He looked at the deep red of the autumn berries. They looked like tiny, round jewels hanging from the bushes. Then he saw the sunflowers. They were tall and bright yellow, reaching for the sun. Sammy loved these colors more than anything. He wished he could keep them forever. He touched a petal with his small paw and felt its soft texture. The meadow was like a giant box of crayons. Sammy looked up at the vast blue sky. It was a very big space above the trees. He saw the white clouds drifting by. To Sammy, the clouds looked a little bit sad. They were plain and empty, like a blank sheet of paper. He thought the sky looked lonely without any bright colors to match the forest below. He tilted his head and wondered why the sky stayed so pale while the ground was so colorful and bright. Suddenly, Sammy had a wonderful idea. His little heart beat fast with excitement. I want to give the clouds some color, he thought. I will make them happy by painting them. He looked at the acorn bowls hanging from his vine belt. They were empty now, but he knew he could fill them. He wanted to make the sky look as beautiful as the sunflowers and the red berries. It was a big dream for a small squirrel. Sammy ran to a tall oak tree. He climbed as fast as his lithe legs could carry him. He reached the highest branch and took a deep breath. He gathered all his strength and jumped. He reached out his paws, trying to touch a passing cloud. But the sky was much too far away. He landed safely on a lower branch with a soft thud. He sighed. Even the tallest oak tree was not high enough to reach the clouds. A bright flash of blue landed on the branch next to Sammy. It was Bibi, the bluebird. She had cerulean feathers that looked like the ocean. She had a white ring around her neck and a small azure crest. Bibi tilted her head and looked at Sammy. "Why are you jumping into the air?" she asked, with a curious chirp. "Are you trying to catch the wind, or are you just playing a new game, Sammy?" Sammy looked at his friend. "I want to paint the clouds, Bibi," he explained. "I want to give them the red of the berries and the yellow of the sunflowers. But I am too short, and the sky is too high." Bibi looked up at the white clouds. She thought for a moment, and then chirped happily. "That is a great idea, Sammy. I can fly high, and you can paint. Let us do it together." Bibi took off into the air with her aerodynamic wings. She flew across the meadow like a blue arrow. She looked for the most colorful plants in the whole forest. She saw bright blossoms and thick leaves. She knew exactly where to find the best colors. Sammy watched her from the ground. He felt lucky to have a friend like Bibi. With her help, His big dream might actually come true after all. Together, they started their work. Bibi flew down and brought back red rose petals. They were a deep, rich color. Then she found yellow marigolds that looked like little pieces of the sun. Sammy used a rock to mash the petals into a thick paste. He worked hard until he had a bright red juice and a sunny yellow liquid. He poured them into his hollowed-out acorn bowls. The colors were thick and beautiful. Next, they found a patch of dark, juicy berries. They crushed them to make a rich purple juice. It was the color of a deep plum. Bibi then flew to a garden and brought back orange lilies. These flowers had a warm glow that made Sammy feel happy. They mixed the lily petals until they had a bright orange paint. Now, their acorn bowls were full of red, yellow, purple, and orange. They were ready. Sammy and Bibi sat on a flat stone. They worked together to mix the colors. They wanted to make sure the paints were just right. Sammy stirred the purple juice with a small twig. Bibi added a little bit of water from a nearby puddle. They made sure the colors were not too thick and not too thin. The vine belt around Sammy's waist held the bowls securely. They were a perfect team of forest artists. Sammy looked at his empty paws. He needed a brush to paint the sky. He looked at the trees, but the twigs were too stiff. Then he looked at his own tail. It was massive and fluffy with auburn fur. He realized it was the softest and best brush in the entire forest. He wagged it back and forth. It was perfect for spreading color across the soft clouds. He felt very proud of his special squirrel tail. "We must go to the center of the woods," Bibi said. "The grand pine is the tallest tree there." They traveled through the thick forest. The grand pine was a giant tree that seemed to reach for the stars. Its trunk was thick, and its needles were dark green. This was the only place where the clouds came close to the earth. Sammy looked up and felt a little bit nervous, but he knew he had to try. Sammy began the long trek up the trunk of the grand pine. He climbed carefully. He had to be very steady because he was carrying his acorn bowls. He did not want to spill a single drop of his precious paint. His little claws gripped the bark tightly. Bibi flew beside him, cheering him on. "You can do it, Sammy," she chirped. The ground below got smaller and smaller as he climbed higher into the air. Finally, Sammy reached the very highest branch. It was very thin and swayed in the breeze. Up here, the wind blew softly against his fur. The clouds felt so close he could almost touch them. They looked like giant mounds of white cotton candy. Sammy felt like he was on top of the world. He looked down and saw the tops of all the other trees. He was ready to make the sky beautiful. Bibi landed on the branch to help him. She used her beak to hold the acorn bowls steady. Sammy took a deep breath and looked at his palette of colors. He felt a little bit of magic in the air. The clouds were waiting for him. He looked at the white shapes and planned his design. He wanted to use the warm colors first. Bibi stayed very still so Sammy could reach his paints easily. Sammy dipped his big, fluffy tail into the orange juice. He swung his tail with a wide stroke. Then he dipped it into the purple juice. He splashed the colors across the soft, white clouds. He moved his tail back and forth like a magic wand. The colors began to spread and grow. He added bits of red and yellow. He worked fast, letting his artistic heart guide his paws. He was finally painting the sky. The colors spread out across the horizon. The orange and purple mixed together to create a magnificent glow. The sky was no longer empty and white. It was now a giant painting of a beautiful sunset. The yellow and red stripes looked like fire in the sky. The whole forest was bathed in a warm golden light. Sammy stood back and looked at his work. The clouds looked happy, and the sky was full of wonder. All the animals in the great green woods stopped what they were doing. They looked up at the sky in wonder. The squirrels dropped their nuts, and the rabbits stopped hopping. They had never seen anything so beautiful. Sammy looked down from the high branch. He smiled a big squirrel smile. He realized that even with small paws, he could make a big difference. His dream had changed the world for everyone to see.